In the year 2247, humanity made a discovery that would change everything. Deep beneath the rust-red surface of Mars, buried for millennia, an ancient alien artifact was unearthed. Its surface, etched with symbols no human had ever seen, pulsed faintly with an otherworldly energy. When activated, the artifact sent a shockwave across the cosmos, awakening a signal that had lain dormant for eons. That signal reached the farthest corners of the galaxy, stirring a long-forgotten empire from its slumber. As the artifact hummed to life, a chilling message echoed through the void, a warning etched in the stars: the harvesters have returned. Earth's leaders, caught off guard and unprepared, scrambled to decipher the meaning of this cryptic message. What followed was a war no one saw coming, a conflict that would test humanity's resolve, ingenuity, and very survival. This is the story of how humanity awoke a galactic war, and how we fought to secure our place among the stars. Stay with us, because what comes next will reveal the courage, sacrifice, and unity that defined humanity's greatest struggle. By the end of this video, you'll witness the dawn of a new era, one where humanity stood tall against the unknown, ready to face the challenges of a galaxy far larger and more dangerous than we ever imagined. As the artifact's energy surged through the cosmos, its signal rippled across the galaxy like a stone cast into a still pond. Far beyond the reaches of human understanding, in the cold void of space, the Vyrrak Dominion stirred. This ancient empire, once the undisputed rulers of the stars, had slumbered for millennia, their fleets silent and their ambitions buried, but the artifact's pulse was a clarion call, a summons they could not ignore. High Warlord Ziontar, a figure of towering menace and unyielding will, emerged from the shadows of his empire's long hibernation. His voice, cold and commanding, echoed through the halls of his flagship as he declared, "The time of reckoning has come." Across the Dominion, ships that had lain dormant for ages began to awaken, their engines humming with renewed purpose. Yet on Earth, humanity remained blissfully unaware of the storm gathering light years away. The artifact's activation had set in motion a chain of events that would soon bring the galaxy to the brink of war, and humanity, still grappling with the implications of their discovery, would soon find themselves at the center of a conflict they could scarcely comprehend. The Vyrrak were coming, and their arrival would change everything. As the Vyrrak Dominion began their ominous mobilization, back on Mars, Dr. Elena Reyes stood in the dimly lit control room of the Martian research facility, her eyes fixed on the artifact. The ancient device, now fully active, pulsed with an eerie light, its surface covered in alien symbols that seemed to shift and writhe as if alive. Reyes, the lead scientist on the project, had spent countless hours studying the artifact, and now, as she deciphered fragments of its message, a chilling realization dawned on her. The symbols weren't just a warning, they were a dire prophecy. The harvesters, she whispered, her voice trembling, they consume civilizations, they leave nothing behind. Her heart raced as the implications sank in. This wasn't just a relic of the past, it was a harbinger of annihilation. Without wasting a moment, Reyes began composing an urgent transmission to Earth, her fingers flying across the console. "This is Dr. Elena Reyes, Martian Research Facility. The artifact's message is clear. We are facing an existential threat. The harvesters are real, and they are coming. We must prepare." Her words were cut short as the room was plunged into darkness. A sudden power surge rippled through the facility, and the artifact began to emit a low, ominous hum, vibrating through the walls and floor. The sound was unlike anything Reyes had ever heard, deep, resonant, and filled with an unshakable sense of dread. It was as if the artifact itself was counting down to something catastrophic. Reyes stumbled back from the console, her mind racing. The hum grew louder, more insistent, and the artifact's light intensified, casting long, jagged shadows across the room. She knew she had to act fast. Grabbing a portable data drive, she began downloading everything she could, every fragment of the message, every reading from the artifact. The hum reached a deafening crescendo, and the air seemed to crackle with energy. Reyes' instincts screamed at her to leave, but she couldn't abandon the data. Not now, not when the fate of humanity might depend on it. As she finished the download, the artifact's light flared one last time, and the hum abruptly stopped. The silence that followed was almost as unnerving as the noise. Reyes clutched the data drive tightly, her breath coming in short, panicked gasps. She had to get this information to Earth. But as she turned to leave, a single thought echoed in her mind. How much time did they have before the harvesters arrived, and would humanity be ready to face them? The answers, she feared, were far from comforting. With the artifact's ominous warning still ringing in her ears, Reyes made her way to the facility's emergency shuttle, her mind already racing ahead to the challenges that lay before them. The storm was coming, and humanity's first battle for survival was about to begin. As the artifact's ominous hum faded into silence on Mars, the ripple of its warning reached Earth, sending shockwaves through the halls of power. The United Nations, the last bastion of global cooperation, convened an emergency session in New York. Representatives from every nation packed the grand chamber, their faces a mix of fear, confusion, and determination. The room buzzed with tension as the weight of Dr. Reyes' transmission settled over them. The harvesters were real, and humanity's survival hung in the balance. But unity, it seemed, was in short supply. As the session began, debates quickly devolved into chaos. Nations pointed fingers, each accusing the other of failing to prepare for such a threat. Some argued for immediate military action, while others called for diplomacy, insisting there must be a way to reason with the Vyrrak Dominion. The room echoed with raised voices, clashing ideologies, and the growing realization that humanity was fractured at the worst possible moment. Amidst the turmoil, one figure rose to command attention. Admiral Marcus Kane, the newly appointed leader of the Earth Defense Fleet, stepped to the podium. His presence was commanding, his voice steady but laced with urgency. "We are standing on the brink of annihilation," he began, his words cutting through the noise. "The harvesters are coming, and they do not care about our borders, our politics, or our differences. If we continue to argue among ourselves, we will fall. But if we stand together, if we unite as one species, we might just have a chance." The room fell silent, the weight of his words sinking in. Kane's declaration, "We either stand together or fall apart," became a rallying cry. Slowly, grudgingly, the nations began to set aside their differences. Plans were drawn up, resources pooled, and the Earth Defense Fleet, still in its infancy, was thrust into the spotlight. Ships were retrofitted, soldiers trained, and scientists like Dr. Reyes were given unprecedented access to global research facilities. Yet, even as the gears of preparation began to turn, a sobering truth lingered in the air. Humanity was woefully unprepared for an interstellar war. Their ships were outdated, their weapons untested, and their understanding of the enemy dangerously limited. But Kane's words had ignited a spark, a fragile hope that, against all odds, humanity might rise to the challenge. As the session adjourned, the world watched and waited. The storm was no longer on the horizon, it was here, and humanity, for the first time in its history, would have to face it not as a collection of nations, but as one. The question remained, would it be enough? The answer, like the stars above, was shrouded in uncertainty. With the United Nations finally moving toward a unified response, the focus shifted to the next critical step, preparing for the inevitable clash with the Vyrrak Dominion. The clock was ticking, and every decision, every action, would determine whether humanity survived or was consumed by the darkness of the stars. As the Earth Defense Fleet scrambled to prepare for the unknown, the first signs of the Vyrrak Dominion's arrival shattered any illusions of peace. Emerging from the void of space, their sleek, black scout ships materialized on the edge of the Sol system, their angular hulls bristling with weapons that gleamed ominously under the distant light of the sun. These were no exploratory vessels, they were harbingers of war, designed to intimidate and destroy. The Earth Defense Fleet, still in its infancy, moved to intercept. Human ships, retrofitted and hastily assembled, formed a defensive line near Mars. The tension was palpable as the two forces faced each other across the cold expanse of space. On the bridge of the human flagship, Admiral Kane watched the Vyrrak vessels with a steely gaze, his mind racing through the possibilities. He knew humanity was outmatched, but retreat was not an option. A transmission crackled through the comms, and the face of the Vyrrak commander, Kralvek, filled the screen. His features were sharp, his eyes cold and calculating. "Humans," he began, his voice a low, menacing growl, "you stand in the presence of the Vyrrak Dominion. Surrender your world or face annihilation. This is your only warning." The ultimatum hung in the air like a death sentence. Before Kane could respond, the Vyrrak ships opened fire. Energy beams lanced through the void, striking the human vessels with devastating precision. Shields buckled, hulls were torn apart, and the once orderly formation of the Earth Defense Fleet dissolved into chaos. Kane barked orders, his voice cutting through the panic. "Hold the line, do not let them break through," but the reality was grim. Human weapons, though valiantly fired, barely scratched the Vyrrak ship's advanced armor. The gap in technology was painfully clear, and with every passing moment, the human fleet suffered heavy losses. Amidst the carnage, a single cruiser, the Eclipse, commanded by Captain Aisha Patel, executed a daring maneuver. Flanking the Vyrrak ships, Patel's crew targeted their engines, buying precious time for the remaining human vessels to retreat. It was a small victory in the face of overwhelming odds, but it proved one thing: humanity would not go down without a fight. As the remnants of the Earth Defense Fleet regrouped, the Vyrrak ships claimed Mars as their foothold, their presence a grim reminder of the war to come. Earth, now vulnerable and exposed, braced for the next wave of the Vyrrak onslaught. The question was no longer if they would attack, but when, and whether humanity could survive the storm that was already upon them. With Mars under enemy control, the focus shifted to Earth's defenses. The clock was ticking, and every decision, every sacrifice, would determine the fate of humanity. The war had begun, and there was no turning back. As the chaos of the initial skirmish settled, the Battle of Mars unfolded as humanity's first true encounter with interstellar warfare. The Earth Defense Fleet, though courageous, was no match for the Vyrrak Dominion's superior firepower and advanced technology. Human ships, designed for exploration and retrofitted for combat, struggled to hold their ground against the relentless assault. Energy beams tore through hulls, and entire vessels were reduced to debris in moments, their crews lost to the void. Amidst the devastation, Captain Aisha Patel of the Eclipse emerged as a beacon of hope. Recognizing the futility of a head-on confrontation, she ordered her crew to execute a high-risk flanking maneuver. The Eclipse darted through the chaos, weaving between Vyrrak ships with precision and daring. Targeting their engines, Patel's crew managed to disable several enemy vessels, creating a brief but critical window for the remaining human ships to retreat. The maneuver came at a cost. The Eclipse sustained heavy damage, its hull scorched and systems failing, but Patel's quick thinking saved countless lives. Her actions proved that even in the face of overwhelming odds, humanity could strike back. Yet the victory was bittersweet. The Vyrrak forces, undeterred, consolidated their hold on Mars, transforming the Red Planet into a staging ground for their next assault. With Mars under enemy control, Earth's vulnerability became starkly apparent. The Vyrrak now had a foothold in the Sol system, and their next target was clear. Humanity, still reeling from the losses, faced a grim reality. The war had only just begun, and the stakes were higher than ever. As the remnants of the Earth Defense Fleet regrouped, the focus shifted to fortifying Earth's defenses. Every resource, every innovation, and every ounce of human ingenuity would be needed to prepare for the inevitable. The Battle of Mars had been a brutal lesson, but it also revealed a glimmer of hope: humanity's resilience in the face of extinction. The question now was not just survival, but how to turn the tide. With Mars lost and Earth in the crosshairs, the fight for humanity's future had entered a new, desperate phase. The war was far from over, and every decision, every sacrifice would shape the fate of the galaxy. As the Vyrrak tightened their grip on Mars, a glimmer of hope emerged from the shadows of despair. Deep within the Martian research facility, Dr. Elena Reyes made a groundbreaking discovery. The artifact, once thought to be nothing more than a cryptic warning, revealed its true purpose. It was a weapon, a tool designed to disrupt the very technology that powered the Vyrrak war machine. The ancient device pulsed with energy, its intricate patterns glowing faintly as if awakening from a long slumber. Reyes, her hands trembling with a mix of exhaustion and determination, pored over the artifact's alien inscriptions. Each symbol, each line of code, held the key to humanity's survival, but time was running out. The Vyrrak fleet, emboldened by their victory on Mars, had already set their sights on Earth. Reyes knew she had to unlock the artifact's secrets before it was too late. Meanwhile, aboard the Earth Defense Fleet's flagship, Admiral Marcus Kane prepared for what could be humanity's last stand. The remnants of the fleet, battered but unbroken, gathered in orbit around Earth. Kane, his voice steady but laced with urgency, addressed his crew. "This is our chance to turn the tide," he declared. "We can't afford to fail, not now, not ever." His words resonated through the ship, a rallying cry for a species on the brink. As the Vyrrak fleet advanced, their sleek black vessels cutting through the void like shadows, Reyes worked tirelessly. The artifact's hum grew louder, its energy building with each passing moment. She could feel the weight of the galaxy pressing down on her shoulders, but she refused to falter. Every second counted, every decision mattered. Back in space, Kane's fleet braced for the inevitable clash. The Vyrrak ships loomed closer, their weapons primed and ready. The Admiral's mind raced, calculating strategies, weighing risks. He knew the odds were against them, but he also knew that humanity's greatest strength lay in its ability to adapt, to fight back against impossible odds. The stage was set for a desperate gamble. Reyes, on the brink of unlocking the artifact's power, and Kane, leading a fleet on the edge of annihilation, were united by a single goal: to protect Earth at all costs. The Vyrrak may have had the advantage of technology and numbers, but humanity had something they could never replicate: the will to survive, to fight for a future worth living. As the Vyrrak fleet entered Earth's orbit, the artifact's hum reached a crescendo. Reyes, her eyes wide with realization, whispered to herself, "This is it. This is our chance." The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, and the next move would determine whether humanity would rise or fall. As the tension in orbit reached its peak, the unthinkable happened. The Vyrrak fleet unleashed their fury upon Earth, raining destruction from the skies. Orbital bombardment turned cities into ash, towering skyscrapers collapsing like dominoes, and streets once bustling with life now filled with smoke and ruin. The devastation was unimaginable, a grim reminder of the Vyrrak's overwhelming power. Yet, even in the face of such destruction, humanity refused to surrender. Amidst the chaos, a spark of defiance ignited. In the ruins of what was once New York, a figure emerged from the shadows, Jaxon Reed, a former soldier hardened by years of combat. His face was etched with determination, his voice steady as he rallied the survivors around him. "They can destroy our cities," he declared, his words cutting through the despair, "but they can't break our spirit. We fight not just for ourselves, but for everyone who can't." His message spread like wildfire, uniting those who had lost everything but their will to resist. The resistance movement grew rapidly, a patchwork of civilians, soldiers, and engineers banding together. They salvaged what they could from the wreckage, repurposing broken machinery and scavenged weapons into tools of rebellion. Jaxon's leadership became a beacon of hope, his tactical mind and unyielding resolve inspiring others to stand against the Vyrrak's tyranny. Underground networks formed, coordinating strikes on Vyrrak supply lines and communication hubs, chipping away at the enemy's grip on Earth. But the Vyrrak were relentless. Their forces swept through the ruins, hunting down pockets of resistance with brutal efficiency. Every victory came at a cost, every step forward met with fierce opposition. Yet Jaxon and his fighters pressed on, driven by the belief that even in the darkest hour, humanity could rise again. "This isn't just about survival," Jaxon told his team, his voice firm. "This is about proving that no matter how hard they hit us, we'll keep getting back up. We're not just fighting for Earth, we're fighting for the future." As the resistance gained momentum, their actions began to disrupt the Vyrrak's plans. Supply convoys went missing, patrols vanished without a trace, and the once unstoppable war machine started to show cracks. The Vyrrak, accustomed to crushing civilizations with ease, now faced an enemy they couldn't fully comprehend, an enemy that refused to be broken. The stage was set for a new kind of war, one fought not in the stars but in the ruins of humanity's home. Jaxon Reed and his fighters stood at the heart of it, a symbol of resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. The Vyrrak had underestimated humanity once before, and now they were about to learn just how costly that mistake could be. As the resistance prepared for their next move, one thing became clear: the fight for Earth was far from over. As the resistance fought valiantly on the ground, a breakthrough unfolded far above Earth's surface. Deep within a hidden facility, Dr. Elena Reyes worked tirelessly, her fingers flying over the artifact's ancient interface. The hum of the machine grew louder, its energy building to a crescendo. With a final keystroke, the artifact's weapon systems roared to life, unleashing a massive energy pulse that rippled through the atmosphere. In an instant, the Vyrrak fleet in Earth's orbit was crippled, their ships falling silent as their systems were overwhelmed by the artifact's power. The sudden shift in the balance of power sent shockwaves through both sides. On Earth, the resistance erupted in cheers, their spirits lifted by the unexpected turn of events. Jaxon Reed, standing amidst the ruins, clenched his fists as he watched the sky light up with the pulse's glow. "This is it," he said, his voice filled with determination. "This is our chance to push back." The artifact's activation was more than a victory. It was a symbol of hope, proof that humanity could still strike a blow against their oppressors. But the celebration was short-lived. Aboard the Vyrrak flagship,
High Warlord Ziontar watched the unfolding chaos with a mixture of rage and disbelief. His once invincible fleet now drifted helplessly, their systems offline. "They are more resourceful than I anticipated," he growled, his voice dripping with venom. "Crush them before they grow stronger." With a wave of his hand, he issued the order for a full-scale invasion, mobilizing every available ship and soldier to descend upon Earth. The Vyrrak, humiliated by their momentary defeat, were now more dangerous than ever. As the Vyrrak forces began their descent, the resistance scrambled to prepare for the onslaught. Dr. Reyes, still reeling from the artifact's activation, knew this was only the beginning. "We've bought ourselves some time," she said, her voice steady despite the weight of the situation. "But this isn't over. We need to use this moment wisely." Her words echoed through the Resistance's ranks, a reminder that their fight was far from finished. The artifact's pulse had given humanity a fighting chance, but the cost of victory was still uncertain. As the Vyrrak invasion force closed in, the stage was set for a battle that would determine the fate of Earth, and perhaps the galaxy itself. The Resistance, emboldened by their newfound weapon, stood ready to face the storm, but even as they prepared for the fight ahead, one question lingered in the air. Could they hold the line long enough to turn the tide, or would the Vyrrak's overwhelming might prove too much to overcome? The answer would soon be written in fire and blood. As the Vyrrak invasion force descended upon Earth, the planet erupted into chaos. What began as a desperate defense quickly escalated into a brutal, planet-wide conflict. Cities burned, skies darkened with smoke, and the ground trembled under the weight of relentless bombardment. Yet, amidst the devastation, humanity refused to yield. Jaxon Reed and his Resistance fighters moved like shadows through the ruins, striking at the heart of the Vyrrak war machine. With precision and daring, they sabotaged supply lines, crippling the enemy's ability to sustain their assault. Each successful strike was a small victory, a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming odds, humanity could still fight back. Meanwhile, high above the battlefield, Admiral Marcus Kane led the Earth Defense Fleet in a daring assault on the Vyrrak command ship. The odds were against them, their ships outnumbered and outgunned, but Kane's determination burned brighter than ever. For Earth, he shouted, his voice cutting through the static of the comms as his fleet surged forward. The battle was fierce, with ships exploding in brilliant flashes of light and debris scattering across the void. Every second counted, every maneuver a desperate bid to buy time for Dr. Reyes to fully activate the artifact. Kane knew the stakes. If they failed here, Earth would fall. On the ground, the Resistance fought with everything they had. Jaxon Reed, his face streaked with ash and sweat, rallied his fighters with a fierce determination. "We hold the line here," he barked, his voice carrying over the roar of explosions. "Every second we buy is a second closer to turning this war around." The Resistance fighters, though battered and weary, fought with a ferocity born of desperation. They knew what was at stake, not just their lives but the future of their world. As the battle raged on, Dr. Elena Reyes worked feverishly in the hidden facility, her hands trembling as she input the final sequences into the artifact's interface. The hum of the machine grew louder, its energy building to a deafening crescendo. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her, the knowledge that the fate of Earth rested in her hands. "Just a little longer," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the machine's roar. "Hold on, everyone, just a little longer." The Battle of Earth was more than a fight for survival. It was a testament to humanity's resilience, their refusal to surrender even when the odds seemed insurmountable. As the Vyrrak forces closed in, the Resistance and the Earth Defense Fleet stood united, their determination unshakable. The artifact's activation was their only hope, and they would fight to the last breath to ensure it succeeded. The storm had come, and humanity would meet it head-on, their defiance echoing across the stars. As the battle raged on, a new revelation began to unfold deep within the hidden facility. Dr. Elena Reyes, her hands steady despite the chaos around her, finally unlocked the artifact's final secret. The machine wasn't just a weapon, it was a beacon, a call for help designed to summon an ancient ally of humanity. The Ael'vari, a race that had once stood against the Harvesters in a war long forgotten, were the key to turning the tide. With a surge of hope, Reyes activated the beacon, its light piercing through the darkness of the lab. But just as the signal began to transmit, the doors to her facility were blown open. Ziontar's forces had found her. The Vyrrak soldiers stormed in, their weapons raised, but Reyes was already moving. Grabbing the artifact's core, she fled through a hidden passage, her heart pounding as the sound of gunfire echoed behind her. She left behind a single message, scrawled hastily on a nearby console: "The Ael'vari will come, hold the line." The words were a promise, a lifeline for humanity, but they also carried the weight of desperation. The beacon was active, but would it reach the Ael'vari in time? And even if it did, would they arrive before Earth fell? Above the planet, Admiral Kane's fleet continued their desperate struggle against the Vyrrak command ship. The battle was taking its toll, with ships falling one by one, but Kane refused to retreat. "We hold here," he commanded, his voice firm despite the exhaustion in his eyes. "Every second we buy is a second closer to victory." The crew of the Earth Defense Fleet fought with everything they had, their determination unyielding even as the odds stacked against them. They didn't know about the beacon, about the Ael'vari, but they fought on, trusting that their sacrifices would mean something. On the ground, Jaxon Reed and his resistance fighters were pushed to their limits. The Vyrrak forces were relentless, their advance unyielding, but the resistance held firm. "We're not just fighting for ourselves," Reed shouted over the roar of explosions. "We're fighting for everyone who can't, for everyone who's counting on us." His words rallied the fighters, their resolve hardening as they dug in for what might be their final stand. They didn't know about the beacon either, but they fought with the same unshakable belief that humanity could still prevail. As the beacon's signal traveled across the stars, a faint glimmer of hope began to emerge. Somewhere, far beyond the reaches of the Sol system, the Ael'vari received the call. Their ships, ancient yet impossibly advanced, began to stir. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see if the allies of old would answer. For now, humanity's fate hung in the balance, their defiance echoing across the stars as they prepared for what might be their final hour. The line was holding, but for how long? As the battle reached its most desperate hour, the skies above Earth erupted in a blinding flash of light. The Ael'vari had arrived, their ships, sleek and impossibly advanced, sliced through the Vyrrak fleet with terrifying precision, their weapons tearing through the enemy like paper. The tide of the war shifted in an instant, the once unstoppable Vyrrak forces now scrambling to regroup. At the forefront of the Ael'vari fleet was Commander Vyrrak, her voice calm yet commanding as it echoed across the battlefield. "We stand with humanity," she declared, her words carrying the weight of an ancient promise. "The Harvesters must not rise again." The arrival of the Ael'vari was nothing short of miraculous. Their technology, far beyond anything humanity had ever seen, turned the tide in moments. Vyrrak ships that had seemed invincible were now falling from the sky, their hulls shattered by the Ael'vari's devastating firepower. On the ground, Jaxon Reed and his resistance fighters watched in awe as the tide of battle shifted. "They came," Reed whispered, his voice filled with a mix of relief and disbelief. They actually came. The resistance fighters, battered but unbroken, rallied with renewed strength, their hope reignited by the sight of their newfound allies. Above, Admiral Kane's fleet, battered and on the brink of collapse, found a second wind. "This is it," Kane barked to his crew, his voice cutting through the chaos. "The Aelvari are here. We push back now." The Earth Defense Fleet, emboldened by the arrival of their allies, surged forward, their ships joining the Aelvari in a coordinated assault. The Vyrrak Command ship, once a symbol of overwhelming power, now found itself under siege, its defenses crumbling under the combined might of humanity and the Aelvari. Commander Veyra's presence was a beacon of hope, her calm authority a stark contrast to the chaos of battle. "The Harvesters are a threat to all life," she stated, her voice carrying across the fleet's communications. "We will not allow them to return, not while we still draw breath." Her words were a rallying cry, a reminder that this war was about more than just survival. It was about the future of the galaxy itself. As the Aelvari and human forces pressed their advantage, the Vyrrak fleet began to falter. Ships that had once seemed unstoppable were now retreating, their formations breaking under the relentless assault. Zayantar, watching from his flagship, growled in frustration. "This changes nothing," he snarled, though the doubt in his voice was unmistakable. "We will crush them all." But for the first time, his words rang hollow. The tide had turned, and humanity, once on the brink of annihilation, now stood with allies who had answered their call. The battle was far from over, but for the first time, hope was more than just a fleeting thought. It was a reality, burning bright in the hearts of every human and Aelvari soldier on the battlefield. The Harvester's shadow still loomed, but for now, the galaxy had a chance and humanity was ready to fight for it. As the battle raged on, the tide began to shift once more. Zayantar, watching from the command deck of his flagship, clenched his fists in frustration. The Aelvari's arrival had turned the tables, but the High Warlord was not one to accept defeat. His eyes narrowed as he turned to his officers. "Activate the Oblivion Core," he commanded, his voice dripping with malice. "If we cannot rule this galaxy, then we will ensure no one can." The Oblivion Core, a planet-killing superweapon capable of reducing Earth to ash, began to power up, its ominous hum resonating through the ship. On the bridge of the Earth Defense Fleet's flagship, Admiral Kane received the chilling report. "Sir, we're detecting a massive energy spike from the Vyrrak Command ship," one of his officers announced, panic creeping into their voice. "It's the Oblivion Core." "They're preparing to fire." Kane's jaw tightened as he exchanged a glance with Commander Veyra, who stood beside him. "If that weapon fires, Earth is gone," Veyra said, her tone grave. "We must act now." Kane nodded, his mind racing. "We need to disable that weapon before it's too late," he said, his voice steady despite the weight of the situation. "But getting to it won't be easy. Their defenses are still strong, even with the Aelvari's help." Veyra stepped forward, her expression resolute. "Then we go in ourselves," she said. "A small strike team, fast and precise. We infiltrate their flagship and destroy the core from within." The plan was risky, bordering on suicidal, but Kane knew they had no other choice. "This is our last chance," he said, his voice low but firm. "If we fail, Earth dies." He turned to his crew, issuing orders with the calm authority of a leader who had faced impossible odds before. "Prepare a shuttle, we're going in." As the strike team assembled, Jaxon Reed and his resistance fighters received word of the mission. "They're going after the Oblivion Core," Reed said, his voice filled with determination. "We need to give them cover. If we can keep the Vyrrak distracted, it might buy them the time they need." His fighters nodded, their resolve unshaken despite the overwhelming odds. For Earth, Reed said, and the words echoed through the ranks, the shuttle carrying Kane, Vyrrak, and a handful of elite soldiers launched from the Earth Defense Fleet's flagship, streaking toward the Vyrrak command ship. The journey was fraught with danger, Vyrrak fighters swarming around them as they approached. "Hold steady," Kane ordered, his eyes fixed on the target. "We're almost there." Inside the Vyrrak flagship, alarms blared as the strike team breached the hull. "They're here," a Vyrrak officer shouted, but it was too late. Kane and Vyrrak moved with precision, their combined experience and skill cutting through the enemy defenses. The Oblivion core loomed ahead, its energy building to a critical level. "We don't have much time," Vyrrak warned, her voice urgent. Kane nodded, his focus unwavering. "Then let's make this count," he said, as they prepared to confront the final obstacle standing between them and the salvation of Earth. The fate of humanity hung in the balance, and failure was not an option. As the strike team led by Admiral Kane and Commander Vyrrak pressed forward, another critical mission unfolded in the shadows of the Vyrrak flagship. Jaxon Reed and his team of resistance fighters had one goal: to reach the Oblivion core's control room and disable it before it could unleash its catastrophic power. The stakes couldn't have been higher. Every second counted, and every step brought them closer to either victory or annihilation. Reed moved swiftly through the dimly lit corridors, his team following close behind. The Vyrrak soldiers were relentless, their numbers seemingly endless, but the resistance fighters were fueled by something far stronger than fear: hope. "Keep moving," Reed urged, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. "We can't let them stop us now." The sound of blaster fire echoed through the halls as the team fought their way forward, each member knowing that failure meant the end of everything they held dear. As they neared the control room, the resistance encountered a heavily fortified checkpoint. Vyrrak troops had barricaded the entrance, their weapons trained on the approaching humans. Reed crouched behind cover, his mind racing. "We need to break through," he said, his tone firm, "but we can't afford to waste time. On my mark, we push forward, no hesitation." His team nodded, their determination unwavering. With a sharp gesture, Reed signaled the assault. The resistance fighters surged forward, their coordinated attack catching the Vyrrak off guard. Blaster fire lit up the corridor as the two sides clashed, the air thick with tension and the acrid smell of scorched metal. Reed fought with a ferocity born of desperation, his every move calculated to keep his team alive and moving forward. "They thought we were weak," he muttered under his breath, his voice a mix of defiance and resolve. "They were wrong." Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the resistance fighters breached the control room. The Oblivion core loomed before them, its energy levels dangerously high. Reed wasted no time, barking orders to his team as they worked to disable the weapon. "Cut the power lines, override the systems, do whatever it takes to shut this thing down," he shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. The team moved with precision, their training and determination guiding their hands as they worked against the clock. Just as the Oblivion core's energy began to peak, Reed's team succeeded in disabling its core. The weapon's hum faded, its lights dimming as the threat was neutralized. Reed let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding, his relief tempered by the knowledge that their fight was far from over. "We did it," he said, his voice quiet but filled with pride. "But this isn't the end. We've still got a war to win." As the resistance fighters regrouped, the sound of distant explosions reminded them that the battle outside was still raging. Reed's team had bought humanity a crucial reprieve, but the fight for Earth's survival was far from over. With renewed determination, they prepared to rejoin the fray, knowing that every moment counted in the struggle to secure a future for their world. As the Oblivion core fell silent, the tide of the battle began to shift. With the superweapon neutralized, Admiral Kane and Commander Vyrrak seized the moment, rallying their combined human Ael'vari fleet for a final, decisive assault on the Vyrrak flagship. The stakes were clear. This was their chance to strike at the heart of the enemy and end the war once and for all. The fleet surged forward, their ships cutting through the darkness of space like a blade. The Vyrrak flagship loomed ahead, its massive silhouette bristling with weapons and defenses. Kane's ship, the Eclipse, led the charge, its hull already scarred from the relentless fighting. Explosions lit up the void as the two forces clashed, the battle raging with an intensity that seemed to shake the very fabric of the galaxy. Despite the heavy damage to his ship, Kane stood firm on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the enemy flagship. "We've come too far to turn back now," he said, his voice steady but filled with resolve. "This ends here for Earth, for the galaxy, for every life they've taken." His words echoed through the comms, rallying the fleet as they pressed forward. The Eclipse took the brunt of the Vyrrak's counterattack, its shields flickering under the relentless barrage. Alarms blared across the ship, but Kane refused to retreat. "Hold the line," he commanded, his voice cutting through the chaos. "We breach their defenses, and we end this war today." Commander Vyrrak's Ael'vari ships moved in perfect coordination with the human fleet, their advanced technology giving them an edge against the Vyrrak's overwhelming firepower. Vyrrak's voice came through the comms, calm and commanding. "Focus your fire on their weak points. We break through together." The combined fleet's assault was relentless, their coordinated strikes overwhelming the Vyrrak's defenses. One by one, the enemy's turrets and shields fell, their once impenetrable fortress beginning to crumble. Kane's ship, though battered and bruised, pushed forward, its engines roaring as it closed the distance to the flagship. As they breached the final layer of defenses, Kane turned to his crew, his expression a mix of determination and hope. "This is it," he said, his voice carrying the weight of everything they had fought for. "We end this now for Earth, for the galaxy, for our future." The fleet surged forward, their ships converging on the Vyrrak flagship as the battle reached its climax. The fate of Earth, the galaxy, and countless lives hung in the balance, but Kane and Vyrrak knew one thing for certain: they would not stop until the war was won. As the battle raged on, the chaos of the fleet's assault gave way to a singular, pivotal moment. Deep within the Vyrrak flagship, Admiral Kane and Commander Vyrrak found themselves face to face with High Warlord Zayantar, the architect of humanity's suffering. The air was thick with tension, the weight of the galaxy's fate pressing down on them as they stood in the heart of the enemy's stronghold. Zayantar's towering figure loomed before them, his armor gleaming with the cold light of conquest. His voice, dripping with disdain, cut through the silence. "You are insects," he sneered, his words laced with venom, "unworthy of the stars, unworthy of survival. Your defiance is nothing but a fleeting nuisance." Kane stepped forward, his stance unyielding, his eyes locked on the warlord. "And yet," he replied, his voice steady and resolute, "we're the ones standing here, fighting for our future. You underestimated us, Zayantar. That was your mistake." The clash that followed was as much a battle of wills as it was of weapons. Zayantar's strikes were brutal, each blow designed to crush and dominate, but Kane and Vyrrak fought with the precision and determination of those who had everything to lose. Their movements were a testament to the resilience of humanity and the unity forged with the Ael'vari. As the duel reached its crescendo, Kane saw his opening. With a swift, decisive strike, he delivered the final blow, the force of it reverberating through the chamber. Zayantar staggered, his reign of terror brought to an abrupt end. The warlord's fall was not just a victory for Kane and Vyrrak, it was a symbol of hope, a turning point in the war that had threatened to consume the galaxy. Kane stood over the fallen warlord, his breath heavy but his spirit unbroken. "This," he said, his voice carrying the weight of countless sacrifices, "is for Earth. For the galaxy, for every life you took." With Ziontar defeated, the tide of the war shifted irrevocably. The Vyrrak Dominion, once an unstoppable force, now faced the collapse of its leadership. But even as the battle aboard the flagship reached its conclusion, the echoes of Ziontar's final words lingered, a reminder that the fight for the galaxy's future was far from over. As the dust settled, Kane and Vyrrak exchanged a glance, their shared resolve unspoken but unmistakable. They had won this battle, but the war and the looming threat of the Harvesters still awaited. Together, they turned their gaze to the stars, ready to face whatever came next. As the echoes of Ziontar's defeat reverberated across the galaxy, the once mighty Vyrrak fleet began to crumble. Ships that had once struck fear into the hearts of entire civilizations now scattered like leaves in a storm, their formations breaking apart as the Dominion's grip on the stars faltered. The retreat was chaotic, a stark contrast to the disciplined force that had once seemed unstoppable. For humanity, it was a moment of triumph, but also a sobering reminder of the cost of victory. Commander Vyrrak stood beside Admiral Kane, her gaze fixed on the retreating Vyrrak vessels. "The Harvesters are still out there," she said, her voice low but firm. "This war is far from over. Ziontar was just one piece of a much larger threat." Her words carried the weight of experience, a reminder that the galaxy's darkest days might still lie ahead. On Earth, the scars of the conflict were everywhere. Cities lay in ruins, their once bustling streets now silent. But amidst the devastation, there was hope. Humanity, once fractured and divided, had come together in the face of annihilation. Nations that had once bickered over borders now worked side by side to rebuild. The spirit of unity was palpable, a testament to the resilience of a species that had refused to be broken. Admiral Kane, now a symbol of that resilience, addressed the people of Earth in a broadcast that reached every corner of the planet. "We have faced the unimaginable," he said, his voice steady and strong. "We have lost much, but we have also gained something invaluable, each other. Together, we are stronger than we have ever been. And together, we will face whatever comes next." The alliance with the Aelvari deepened in the aftermath of the battle. Their advanced technology and knowledge became crucial in humanity's efforts to rebuild and prepare for the challenges ahead. Joint research initiatives were launched, combining human ingenuity with Aelvari wisdom to create defenses that could withstand even the most formidable threats. Yet, even as humanity celebrated its hard-won victory, the shadow of the Harvesters loomed large. The artifact's cryptic warnings, the Aelvari's grim history, and the remnants of the Vyrrak Dominion all pointed to a greater danger, one that would test the limits of humanity's newfound unity. As the galaxy began to heal, the question lingered: had they truly won, or had they merely bought themselves time? The answer, as Commander Vyrrak had warned, was still written in the stars. And as humanity looked to the future, one thing was certain: they would face it together, stronger and more united than ever before. The next chapter of this galactic saga was yet to unfold, but the lessons of the past would guide them. The war had changed humanity, forging them into a force to be reckoned with, and as they stood on the precipice of a new era, they were ready not just to survive, but to thrive. As the dust of the Vyrrak retreat settled, humanity turned its attention to the artifact that had started it all. Deep within a secure research facility, Dr. Elena Reyes and Jaxon Reed stood side by side, their focus locked on the ancient device. Its surface shimmered with an otherworldly glow, a silent reminder of the secrets it still held. "This isn't just a relic," Reyes said, her voice tinged with both awe and urgency. "It's a key to understanding the Harvesters and the war that nearly tore the galaxy apart." Reed, his hands resting on the edge of the console, nodded. "And if we're going to survive what's coming, we need to unlock every secret it has." The two had become an unlikely team. Reyes, the brilliant scientist driven by curiosity and a sense of duty, and Reed, the battle-hardened soldier who had seen the worst the galaxy could throw at humanity. Together, they represented the best of what humanity had to offer: intellect and resilience, curiosity and courage. As they delved deeper into the artifact's systems, fragments of data began to emerge. Images of ancient battles flickered across the screens, showing civilizations long lost to time. The Harvesters, it seemed, were not just a threat, they were a force of nature, consuming entire star systems with terrifying efficiency. Reyes traced a line of text on the display, her brow furrowed. "This isn't just a war," she murmured. "It's a cycle. They rise, they consume, and then they vanish only to return when the galaxy least expects it." Reed crossed his arms, his expression grim. "So we're not just fighting for Earth, we're fighting for the entire galaxy." The weight of that realization hung in the air, a reminder of the stakes they faced. But Reyes, ever the optimist, offered a small smile. "We've won this battle," she said, her voice steady, "but the real war is just beginning, and if we're going to win it, we need to be ready." Their work became a race against time. Every piece of information they uncovered brought them closer to understanding the Harvesters, and closer to the inevitable confrontation. The artifact, once a mystery, now felt like a ticking clock, counting down to a moment that would define the fate of the galaxy. And as Reyes and Reed worked tirelessly, their partnership became a symbol of humanity's determination to face the unknown, no matter the cost. The artifact's secrets were vast, but so too was humanity's resolve. And as the galaxy braced for the next chapter in this cosmic struggle, one thing was clear: the fight for survival had only just begun. As the alliance between humanity and the Aelvari solidified, the two species began to merge their strengths in ways no one could have imagined. The Aelvari, with their advanced technology and deep understanding of the Harvesters, brought a wealth of knowledge to the table. Humanity, on the other hand, offered something equally valuable: adaptability, creativity, and an unyielding spirit. Together, they began to construct a defense network unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Orbital platforms, cloaked in Aelvari stealth technology, were erected around Earth and key colonies. Shipyards worked around the clock, producing hybrid vessels that combined human ingenuity with Aelvari precision. It was a partnership born of necessity, but it quickly became something more: a symbol of unity in the face of overwhelming odds. Admiral Marcus Kane, now a beacon of hope for both species, stood before a gathering of Earth's leaders and Aelvari dignitaries. The room was filled with a quiet tension, the weight of their shared responsibility pressing down on everyone present. Kane's voice, steady and commanding, broke the silence. "We are no longer alone in the universe," he declared, his words echoing through the chamber. "The Aelvari have shown us that we are stronger together. And with their help, we are ready to face whatever comes next." The alliance was not without its challenges. Cultural differences, logistical hurdles, and the scars of past conflicts tested their resolve. But every obstacle was met with determination and a shared sense of purpose. Dr. Elena Reyes and Commander Vyrrak, the Aelvari leader, worked closely to bridge the gap between their peoples. Reyes, ever the scientist, marveled at the Aelvari's technological advancements, while Vyrrak admired humanity's resilience and capacity for innovation. Together, they ensured that the alliance remained strong, even as the threat of the harvesters loomed ever closer. As the days turned into weeks, the combined efforts of humanity and the Ael'vari began to bear fruit. Early warning systems were deployed across the galaxy, designed to detect the harvesters' approach long before they could strike. Training programs were established, blending human combat tactics with Ael'vari strategies to create a new generation of warriors ready to defend the galaxy. And perhaps most importantly, the artifact, now fully understood, became the centerpiece of their defense, its ancient technology integrated into their plans. The alliance was more than just a military partnership. It was a testament to what could be achieved when two species set aside their differences and worked toward a common goal. As Admiral Kane looked out over the bustling shipyards and the countless beings working side by side, he felt a surge of pride. This, he said to no one in particular, is what hope looks like. And with that hope, humanity and the Ael'vari prepared to face the greatest challenge the galaxy had ever known. As the alliance between humanity and the Ael'vari reached its peak, a new development sent ripples through their carefully laid plans. The artifact, once a symbol of hope and a weapon against the Vyrrak, began to emit a strange, pulsating signal. Dr. Elena Reyes, who had spent countless hours studying its ancient technology, was the first to notice the change. The signal was unlike anything they had seen before, a low, rhythmic hum that seemed to grow stronger with each passing hour. Reyes, her face pale but determined, turned to Commander Vyrrak and Admiral Kane. "This isn't just a warning," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's a countdown. The harvesters are closer than we thought." The news spread quickly, casting a shadow over the bustling shipyards and training grounds. The early warning systems, designed to detect the harvesters' approach, had picked up faint traces of activity on the fringes of the galaxy. The data was incomplete, but the implications were clear. The harvesters were no longer a distant threat. They were coming, and they were coming fast. Admiral Kane, his expression grim, called an emergency meeting of Earth's leaders and Ael'vari commanders. "We've built our defenses," he said, his voice steady but heavy with urgency. "But this changes everything. We need to be ready for the fight of our lives." As the galaxy braced for the next conflict, Dr. Reyes found herself drawn back to the artifact. Its surface, once cold and inert, now glowed with an eerie light. She ran her fingers over its intricate carvings, tracing the symbols that had once been a mystery. "This is just the beginning," she murmured, more to herself than anyone else. The artifact, she realized, was more than a weapon or a warning. It was a key to understanding the harvesters, their motives, and their weaknesses. But unlocking its secrets would take time, and time was a luxury they no longer had. The alliance, forged in the fires of war, now faced its greatest test. Humanity and the Ael'vari, once divided by their differences, stood united on the brink of a new era. The harvesters, ancient and relentless, were a threat unlike any they had faced before. But as the artifact's signal grew stronger, so too did their resolve. Admiral Kane, standing before a gathering of soldiers and commanders, raised his voice above the hum of activity. "We've come this far," he said, his words carrying the weight of their shared struggle. "We've faced the impossible and survived. Now, we fight not just for Earth, but for the galaxy. And we fight together." As the final preparations were made, Dr. Reyes couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the edge of something monumental. The artifact's signal, now a constant presence in the background, was a reminder of the challenges ahead, but it was also a beacon of hope, a symbol of what they could achieve when they worked together. "This is just the beginning," She whispered again, her voice filled with a quiet determination. And with those words, humanity and the Aelvari stepped forward, ready to face the unknown and fight for their place among the stars. As the echoes of the Vyrrak War faded, a new chapter began to unfold, one that would test the limits of humanity's resilience and unity. The alliance between Earth and the Aelvari, forged in the crucible of battle, now faced a threat far greater than anything they had encountered before. The Harvesters, ancient and relentless, were no longer a distant specter but an imminent danger, their presence signaled by the artifact's unrelenting hum. Admiral Kane, standing before the combined forces of humanity and the Aelvari, delivered a speech that would echo through the ages. "We awoke this war," he declared, his voice steady and resolute, "and we will see it through to the end for Earth, for the galaxy, for our future." The words resonated deeply, not just with the soldiers and commanders gathered before him, but with every citizen of Earth and every member of the Aelvari. They were no longer separate entities, divided by fear and mistrust. They were one, a united front against a common enemy. Dr. Elena Reyes, her hands still trembling from the artifact's latest readings, felt a surge of determination. The artifact, once a mystery, had become their greatest hope. Its secrets, though still partially hidden, held the key to understanding the Harvesters and perhaps defeating them. "This is just the beginning," she whispered, her voice carrying the weight of their shared destiny. As the galaxy braced for the coming storm, the Alliance worked tirelessly to prepare. Shipyards buzzed with activity, producing advanced warships equipped with both human ingenuity and Aelvari technology. Training grounds echoed with the sounds of soldiers honing their skills, their resolve unshakable. The artifact, now a central focus of their efforts, continued to pulse with its eerie light, a constant reminder of the challenges ahead, but it was also a symbol of hope, a beacon guiding them toward a future where they could stand tall among the stars. Admiral Kane, his gaze fixed on the horizon, knew the road ahead would be fraught with peril. The Harvesters were a force unlike any they had faced, their motives shrouded in mystery and their power unmatched. Yet, as he looked out over the bustling preparations, he felt a quiet confidence. Humanity had risen from the ashes of division and despair to become a force to be reckoned with. Together with the Aelvari, they were ready to face whatever came next. "This war is far from over," he said, his voice carrying the weight of their shared struggle. "But we are ready, and we will fight not just for survival, but for the future of all who call this galaxy home." As the final preparations were made and the artifact's signal grew stronger, the Alliance stood on the brink of a new era. The Harvesters were coming, but so too was the dawn of a united galaxy. And as the first rays of that new dawn broke over the horizon, humanity and the Aelvari stepped forward, ready to face the unknown and fight for their place among the stars. The war they had awoken was far from over, but their resolve was unshakable. Together, they would see it through to the end for Earth, for the galaxy, for their future. And with that, the stage was set for the next chapter in this epic saga, leaving listeners eager for what was to come.